I did not think twice when I wore that skirt that day. It was just a normal outfit, just another afternoon. But then I saw his eyes, the way he looked at me. It was not normal, it was not right. And what happened after, I still cannot talk about it without feeling sick. But I need to share this because no one else should go through what I did. I had always been close to my nephew, treating him more like a younger brother than anything else. Staying at my sister's house for the weekend was nothing unusual. It was something I had done many times before, and there had never been a reason to feel uneasy. My sister and I had a strong bond, and I had known my nephew since the day he was born. He was family, someone I had always been comfortable around. But this time something felt different. It was not anything obvious at first, just small things I started to notice as the hours passed. He was home from university and he looked taller, more grown up than I had remembered. There was a certain confidence in the way he carried himself now, something that had not been there before. I told myself that it was just normal. People change as they grow older. Still, there was something else, something I could not quite put my finger on. I had always known him as a kind, respectful young man. But this time I felt his eyes on me in a way that made me uncomfortable. At first I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was just overthinking. Maybe I was being paranoid. But as the day went on, I could not ignore it. Whenever I entered a room, I would find him looking at me, and the moment I met his gaze, he would glance away, almost as if he had been caught doing something wrong. At first, I dismissed it as nothing. Maybe it was just my imagination, maybe I was over-analyzing things. That afternoon, I went upstairs to get ready for an outing. I picked out a casual miniskirt and a light top, something I had worn many times before. It was just another outfit, nothing special. I did not even think twice about it as I slipped it on. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair, smoothing down the fabric of my skirt. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the hallway. I turned my head slightly, and that was when I saw him. My nephew was standing there, just a few feet away, watching me. Something in his expression made my stomach tighten. It was not the look of a family member or a younger brother. It was something else entirely. His eyes were locked onto me, unmoving, his face unreadable. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. I wanted to believe that it was nothing, that he had just been passing by and happened to glance in my direction. But he did not move. He did not say anything, he just stood there. I cleared my throat and turned back to the mirror, pretending I had not noticed. My hands trembled slightly as I grabbed a brush and ran it through my hair. I kept my expression neutral, forcing myself to act normal. My heart pounded against my ribs, and I could feel the weight of his stare still lingering. After what felt like an eternity, I finally heard him walk away. The sound of his footsteps disappeared down the hall, and I exhaled a shaky breath. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe he had not meant anything by it. Maybe I was just imagining things, but deep down, something inside me whispered that I was not. Dinner felt like any other night, but something about it was different. The dining table was filled with chatter, laughter, and the clinking of utensils against plates, but I could not focus on any of it. My sister and her husband were caught up in their own conversation, discussing work, bills, and their upcoming vacation plans. Their voices faded into the background as my attention kept shifting elsewhere. Across the table I could feel it again, that stare. It was not just a glance, not the kind of casual eye contact people made during conversation. It was something deeper, something that sent a strange uneasiness creeping through me. I tried to act natural, forcing myself to look down at my plate and focus on my food, but I was hyper-aware of every movement, every shift in posture from across the table. When I finally looked up, his eyes met mine. He did not look away immediately. It was a second too long, just enough to make my stomach tighten. Then, almost as if realizing what he was doing, he quickly dropped his gaze and focused on his plate. I wanted to tell myself that I was imagining things. Maybe I was just being overly sensitive. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, something felt off. I could not ignore the way my skin prickled whenever he was near, or how I felt his gaze on me, even when I was not looking. After dinner, my sister and her husband went upstairs early. They were exhausted from work and wanted to turn in for the night. I stayed downstairs a little longer, sitting on the couch in the living room, scrolling mindlessly through my phone. My nephew sat across from me, pretending to watch television, but I could sense that he was not really paying attention to the screen. There was a heaviness in the air, something unspoken that neither of us addressed. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that I was overthinking everything, but every time I looked up, he was already looking at me. I cleared my throat and stood up, pretending I was tired and ready for bed. I could feel his gaze following me as I walked up the stairs. The moment I reached my room, I closed the door behind me and let out a slow breath. Lying in bed, I tried to push all the thoughts away. Maybe I was reading too much into things, maybe I was making something out of nothing, but my body refused to relax. My heart still felt uneasy, and a part of me could not shake the feeling that something was not right. Then I heard it. At first it was just a faint creak, like the floorboards shifting under someone's weight. I told myself it was nothing, just the old house settling. But then it happened again. The sound was closer this time, right outside my door. I held my breath, listening. My fingers gripped the edge of my blanket as my ears strained for any other noise. Then came the breathing, slow, heavy, right on the other side of the door. A chill ran down my spine. I did not move. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing it to stop. Maybe if I ignored it, it would go away. Minutes passed, long and suffocating. The breathing never changed, just slow, steady, and too close for comfort. Then, finally, the sound of footsteps retreating down the hall. I did not open my eyes for a long time. I stayed frozen in bed, every muscle tense until I was sure I was alone again. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I had imagined it, but deep down I knew better. The next morning I woke up feeling exhausted. My sleep had been restless, filled with strange dreams and an underlying sense of unease that lingered even as I tried to shake it off. The events of the previous night still played in my mind, but I convinced myself that I was overthinking. Maybe I had imagined the breathing outside my door. Maybe it had just been the house settling or the wind moving through the old pipes. I needed to stop making a big deal out of nothing. I got out of bed and decided to keep myself busy. I went downstairs, made some coffee, and sat in the living room, scrolling through my phone. My sister and her husband had already left for work, and the house was quiet. My nephew was still asleep, which made me feel more at ease. At least, for now, I could relax without feeling his presence lurking around me. After finishing my coffee, I decided to use the family laptop. I needed to check some emails, maybe browse the internet, just something to take my mind off everything. I opened the laptop and clicked around absent-mindedly. As I was about to log into my email, I noticed a folder on the desktop with my name on it. My stomach tensed. It was odd. Why would there be a folder with my name? Curious but hesitant, I clicked on it. The folder opened, revealing several images. At first, I thought they might be old pictures, maybe something my sister had saved, but as I clicked on the first image, my breath caught in my throat. It was a picture of me, not just any picture, one from yesterday. I was wearing the miniskirt. The photo was taken from an angle that suggested I had not been aware of it. Confusion turned into dread as I scrolled through the other images. more photos of me. Some were from the living room, some from the kitchen. Then there were close-up shots, ones I did not even remember being in a position to be photographed in. My hands trembled as I clicked on another. It was zoomed in on my legs, capturing details that no normal photo would focus on. My breathing became shallow. I felt sick. I closed the folder for a second, my mind racing. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe my sister had taken them absent-mindedly, though that made no sense. Why would she take photos like this? And why would they be on the laptop in a folder named after me? I reopened the folder and checked the file details. My heart pounded as I saw the timestamps. These pictures had been taken while I was in the house. Some of them were taken when I was in my room, standing by the mirror. My chest tightened. That meant that someone had been there, watching me, capturing these moments without my knowledge. There was no denying it now. Someone had been following me around, secretly taking pictures of me. And there was only one person in this house who could have done it. My body went cold. I felt trapped, as if the walls around me had suddenly closed in. My fingers hovered over the laptop trackpad, unsure of what to do next. Should I delete them? Should I confront him? Should I call my sister? My mind screamed for answers, but my body refused to move. The more I thought about it, the more my stomach twisted in knots. This was not just some mistake. It was intentional. The angles, the way the photos were framed, it was all deliberate. I suddenly felt exposed. I looked around the room, my skin crawling at the thought of hidden cameras or eyes watching me at that very moment. I needed to get out of there. I slammed the laptop shut and stood up, my legs unsteady beneath me. My mind replayed every moment from the past few days, piecing together the little things I had ignored. The stares, the strange silence, the way he had been hovering around me. And worst of all, the way he had been outside my room last night. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The reality of the situation settled in like a weight pressing down on my chest. I was not imagining things. It was real, it was happening, and I did not know what to do next. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to believe there was another explanation, some logical reason why those pictures were on the computer, but deep down I knew the truth. It was not a mistake. It was not innocent. Someone had been following me, taking pictures of me without my knowledge. The weight of that realization made it hard to breathe. I sat frozen for what felt like forever, my mind racing. I could not stay in the living room. The air felt suffocating, and I had an overwhelming urge to get out, to put distance between myself and whatever this was. My body moved on its own, pushing me up from the chair. I walked to the staircase, every step feeling heavier than the last. I wanted to run, to leave the house, to escape, but I had nowhere to go. This was my sister's home. I was supposed to feel safe here. I forced myself to take slow, deep breaths, trying to calm the panic rising inside me. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should wait until my sister came home and tell her. But then I thought about what that conversation would even sound like. What if she did not believe me? What if she thought I was misinterpreting things? I needed proof. I went to my room and closed the door behind me, locking it even though I had never felt the need to before. I sat on the bed, my mind replaying everything over and over again. The stairs, the moments I had brushed off as nothing, the sound of someone outside my door at night. It had all been leading up to this. I could not ignore it anymore. I had to know for sure. If I was right, I needed to be sure before I did anything. That night I left my door slightly open, just enough to see into the hallway. I told myself that if I was wrong, I would laugh about it in the morning. I would tell myself that I had let my imagination run wild, that I had been paranoid for nothing. But if I was right, I lay in bed, my body tense, every muscle stiff as I waited. The minutes passed slowly. My eyes burned from staring at the sliver of hallway visible through the gap in the door. I did not know what I was expecting. Maybe nothing would happen and I would finally be able to put this feeling to rest. But then, at exactly 2 a.m., the floor creaked. My breath caught in my throat. It was soft, barely noticeable, but I heard it. My body went rigid. The sound came from the hallway, from just outside my door. I stayed still, forcing myself not to react. Maybe it was just the house settling, just my mind playing tricks on me. But then another step, and another. A shadow moved past the doorway. My heartbeat thundered in my chest. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. I kept my breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. My body screamed at me to get up, to turn on the light, to do something. But I could not. I was frozen. The door creaked. I could hear my pulse in my ears, a rapid, erratic rhythm that made it hard to think. The door had not been touched, had not been pushed, but somehow it moved. Just slightly. Just enough for me to see beyond the darkness of the hallway. Someone was standing there. I could not see details, only a figure, but I knew. I knew exactly who it was. He was watching me. I fought every instinct to sit up, to scream, to run. I forced myself to remain still, to keep my breathing even, to act like I was still asleep. I could feel his presence in the room, feel the way his gaze lingered on me. The seconds stretched into eternity. I wanted to close my eyes, to pretend this was not happening, but I could not look away. Then, slowly, he stepped back. I waited, listened. The sound of retreating footsteps echoed in the hallway. A long silence followed. I did not move, even after I was sure he was gone. I stayed frozen in place, my body still tense. I did not dare get up, did not dare check the door. I was too afraid of what I would find. I had my answer. This was real. The next morning I woke up feeling drained, my body heavy as if I had not slept at all. My mind replayed everything from the night before, every detail, every sound. The way he had stood there in the doorway, silent, watching. The way my body had frozen, refusing to move, refusing to breathe too loudly in case he realized I was awake. Even now, in the daylight, I could still feel the weight of his presence lingering in the air, as if the room itself had absorbed the fear from the night before. I needed to do something. I could not keep pretending everything was normal. My hands were unsteady as I reached for my phone, my mind racing through every possible option. Calling my sister seemed like the obvious choice, but what would I say? How could I explain this without sounding insane? Even if I told her, what proof did I have? My word against his. And what if she did not believe me? Worse, what if she did, and it caused a massive rift in their family? I needed proof. That thought gave me the smallest sense of control. If I could prove what was happening, I would not have to explain anything. The evidence would speak for itself. I sat up, grabbed my laptop, and pulled up the home security system that my sister and her husband had installed years ago. I had never paid much attention to it before, but now it was the only thing that could confirm what I already knew. My fingers felt cold as I navigated through the playback footage, scrubbing through the timeline of the night before. My heart pounded harder with every second that passed. Then I saw it. The hallway camera showed a shadow moving just outside my door. The timestamp read 2:08 a.m. My breath hitched as I watched him step closer, his posture rigid, his head tilted slightly as if listening. He did not knock, did not move toward the handle. He just stood there. 10 seconds passed. 20. A full minute. He never moved. The video continued and I watched in horror as he shifted slightly, leaning in closer as if he was trying to hear if I was still awake. My body stiffened as I remembered that exact moment, how I had felt him there without even seeing him. 10 minutes. That was how long he stood outside my door, unmoving, just standing there in the dark. I felt my stomach twist. I could not stay here. That was my only thought. I needed to leave before anything escalated. My sister would understand later. Right now, I had to get out of that house. I moved quickly, throwing my belongings into my bag. My hands shook as I zipped it up. Every sound felt too loud in the quiet morning air. My heart was pounding as I grabbed my phone and the keys, forcing myself to keep breathing, to stay calm. I did not want to attract attention. I just needed to walk out and leave before he saw me. I opened the door to my room and stepped out, careful to stay silent. The hallway was empty, the house still quiet. I told myself I could make it. Just a few more steps to the front door, and I would be out. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag. Then I saw him. He was standing at the bottom of the stairs, his eyes locked onto mine the second I stepped into view. My stomach dropped. His face was calm, too calm, as if he had been expecting this. My pulse roared in my ears as he took a slow step forward. "Can we talk?" His voice was soft, almost casual, but there was something underneath it that made my skin crawl. I could not speak. My throat felt like it had closed up. My body was screaming at me to move, to get away, but I was frozen under the weight of his stare. There was no hesitation in his expression, no guilt, no embarrassment. He was not afraid of what I had seen, of what I knew, just hunger. I forced myself to take a step back, gripping my bag tighter. "I have to go," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. He did not try to stop me. He just stood there watching, his lips slightly parted like he wanted to say something else. I did not give him the chance. I turned away, walking toward the door as fast as I could without running. My heart hammered against my ribs with every step. I reached for the handle and pulled it open, the rush of cool air hitting my skin like a slap. I stepped outside, my breath shaking. The door closed behind me, but I did not look back. I could still feel his eyes on me, even though I was no longer inside. I kept walking. I did not know where I was going, only that I needed to be far away from that house. I told myself it was over, but deep down I knew it was not.